What are some non-negotiables for you every day besides the the morning routine process for you? Is there non-negotiables in the way you think and what the words you use, how you connect with your wife or your kid or your team, the way you sleep? What other non-negotiables?
I got to train every day. Got to move my body. I mean, this morning we knocked out a 6-mile run before recording this. Got to move my body. Got to spend quality time with my family, my wife, my daughter. And for me, like diet and training, if I take care of the food that I put in my body and the way that I move my body, I'm setting myself up for a good day the rest of the day. But it's also having a plan. A non-negotiable for me is having a plan for that day.
Do you ever not have a plan?
No. I mean, even if it's a weekend.
Even if it's just do nothing and chill, that's the plan.
Even if it's a weekend and it's just hanging out, there's still things throughout the day where, I'm going to prep these foods. I'm going to do this workout. I'm going to read this book. I did an interview with Chad Wright a few months ago, prior Navy SEAL.
Great guy.
Great guy. And one thing he said in our interview that resonated not just with myself, but my team, was that your tongue is your rudder. The things that you say about yourself, about other people, about the day, the weather, what you have to do, what you don't have to do, what comes out of your mouth, that is what steers your ship. That is what steers your day. So I choose to surround myself with optimistic, positive people who control their rudder and steer their ship.
Yeah.
That for me is a non-negotiable.
Yeah. What's the biggest insecurity you have today? Maybe that people know about or no one knows about, but you know.
I think it's honestly being at a 5 or 6 on that scale. An insecurity would be, I know I can be more present. I know I can be a better father, a better husband, a better business owner. But I think that the biggest insecurity is not being at complete inner peace for what I've done for myself this past decade or other people and getting to this point. I think a lot of other people would look at it and say, you should be chilling right now. You should be coasting. But for me, but we're just scratching the surface. I'm just getting started. Like, where am I going to be in 10, 20, 30 years from now? It's what I haven't done yet that is unsettling for me.
Yeah. Do you think there's a way you can be driven and hungry, but also be at an 8, 9, 10?
Absolutely.
Internally with peace?
I think you can. I'm not there yet, but I'm sure there's people there. I mean, where would you say you're at on that scale?
I just said this yesterday. I'm around an 8.5 consistently. It could be an 8.2, 8.7 some days, but most days I'm in that range. And I think it's, I follow routines and practices that keep me there. And if I didn't follow them, then I could drop down to a 7 or a 6 or 5 some days. And I've been 3, 4, 5, in my 20s off and on at different days because I didn't have the tools emotionally to navigate my emotions. And I think a lot of it has been really investing in support emotionally, mentally, through different workshops, through therapy, through coaching, to guide me and give me feedback, to give me exercises to practice things, to reflect on things, and create peace from things in my past that kept me feeling stressed today, that I was even unaware of. And that's why I was saying this could be a great journey for you, to start reflecting on some of that when you're ready, because it brings me to a place of compassion for myself, of acceptance of the different stages of my life that I maybe was beating myself up for things I did or didn't do. And when I have that total acceptance and compassion for all the stages of my life up until now, then I'm not in beat up mode. I'm not in criticism mode. I coach myself in a better way internally. If the words you speak are your rudder, like Chad says, I think the words you internalize are also going to direct the navigation inside of your body. It's going to determine how you feel internally based on your thoughts. And so it's really having a different level of thinking, a different quality of thinking about self-identity. And that includes from my first memory of life up until now. And it's kind of like telling a story, retelling the story of these different stages of life and finding meaning of where I was at those stages so that I have peace now. And again, it's that consistency. It doesn't mean like I woke up a little, I didn't get my workout in today because something happened last minute and I had another meeting this morning that was not planned. And so I was already off talking to my girlfriend. I was like, I feel like I'm behind. Like you said, I feel like I'm a little off because I was supposed to go work out first thing. And then she's like, well, we can just do it later in the day. I'm like, yes, we can, but I know I'm not going to have the best energy. And I like to have that morning workout to kind of just like you. And within like 2 minutes of this, I had to catch myself because I was just kind of complaining. Not in a horrible way, but I was just speaking nonchalantly. I'm kind of a little frustrated about this. I wish I did this now, or I feel behind. Just saying those things put me in a state that I caught myself, I shifted, I got super calm and present, and I just started focusing on what I was grateful for and what I'm going to create today. And then I'm going to get my workout in later today. I'm going to make it happen. And so I just had to shift that internally and externally with my words. But it's been the accountability over the last few years that's really helped me in investing in coaches to support that emotional growth. So that's what supports me.
We launched this brand campaign this past January, 12 days ago. Mm-hmm. And it's called Prove Yourself Right. And the whole concept behind it was I've met so many people who are trying to prove others wrong. Mm-hmm. They have a chip on their shoulder. People have asked me for years, do you work so hard to prove others wrong because you have a chip on your shoulder because people didn't believe you early on? And the answer is always no. That's never the case. That's why I don't do any of my work. It's to prove myself right because I know what I can accomplish. I believe in myself. So we launched this brand campaign January 1st, and the call to action, the activation was, we want people to choose something physically hard to do in 2023. Hard is relative. It could be your first 5K. It could be your first 100-mile ultra. Choose something physically hard to do in 2023. Commit to it. Write it down. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Post it on social media to hold you accountable. And don't do it to try to prove others wrong, but prove yourself right because you can do it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just flipping that script and that narrative to put the accountability on yourself because you can believe in yourself.
Yeah.
If you believe in what you can accomplish, that's much more powerful than trying to put it on an external force and do it for someone who could care less about you.
Yeah. And also it's exhausting energy when you prove people wrong. I did it for many years of my life. I always was accomplishing and achieving to prove others wrong. And then I felt empty and I felt exhausted and drained. And I actually felt really angry after I accomplished these things because I realized, man, I'm doing this for all the wrong reasons. Sure, I'm growing and I'm learning, I'm developing, but the intention behind it was the people that picked on me, the people that made fun of me, the people that, picked me last, all these different things, I'm going to prove them wrong about me. And that fuel and energy based on anger drove me to be consistent and committed and work hard and long hours, but it left me feeling like a 2, 3, and 4 at the end of the day internally. And I started to shift that around 30 as well of like, how can I do this to prove myself right and lift others up in the process? And it sounds like you're doing that. You're lifting your community up by proving yourself right. And you can get so much more done when we think in terms of, collaboration over competition.
Right.
And where everyone wins around you. So I think it's a cool mindset you have on proving people right.
Well, it builds confidence.
Exactly.
What I love about, Tim Grover's book, Winning, and I've told this story many times before, but I love the concept of to get your first win in life, there's a level of sacrifice. And it's challenging, it's hard, but it builds confidence after that first win. And in order to achieve that second, third, fourth, so on and so forth win, there is more sacrifice required, but it builds more confidence. You start stacking these wins where there's failure and there's loss along the way, but you stack wins for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. You didn't just build a resume, but you built your confidence, self-confidence, and that's equally as powerful.
100%. For people that have struggled proving themselves right around nutrition and their workouts being consistent, of just moving their body in consistent ways and eating in healthy ways consistently, and they've never been able to be consistent, what do you think is the thing that would actually allow people to transition once and for all of being consistent? You've been extreme on both ends of essentially counting how little calories you could eat for a year and obsessing over that, to probably obsessing over every calorie you've put in a healthier way. You've kind of been both sides, but you were consistent either way.
Yeah.
How do people get to consistency where they're not in blame mode, they're not in beat up mode when they fall off track, when they miss a workout or a meal that they know is healthy for them? And how can they actually make it their identity and a lifestyle as opposed to something they do once in a while?
My running coach, his name is Jeff Cunningham. He's based out of Austin. And he has this thing that he says, and it's better to be consistently good than occasionally great. And you can apply that to fitness, to your goals, to your diet. Where you see a lot of people fail is they go 180. They decide, today's the day, I'm cutting everything out. They attach to a training style or a diet. Today I'm going all keto.
Yeah.
Today I'm going all carnivore. Today I'm going vegan. Today I'm just doing CrossFit. Today I'm just training for a marathon. They eliminate everything else they were doing that was possibly working for them because they flip it 180, they go all in on something, and then they realize it's not sustainable. They burn out. They don't enjoy it. There's no passion. There's no fun. So how do you become consistently good rather than occasionally great? Maybe I flipped 180. I started a new training program and a new diet, and I lasted for 5 days. Those were a great 5 days. But then for the next 360, nothing. So how do you become consistently good? It's this small implementation of changes that compound over time. And what happens with consistency is it compounds to become greater and greater and larger greatness. So maybe next week I'm going to add one extra run into my week. Let's see how that feels. Maybe next week I'm going to eliminate soda or processed foods. Just see how that feels. I'm going to change my breakfast. I'm going to change what time I go to sleep. You slowly start incorporating, adding these positive benefits into your life, and they become part of your routine over maybe 3, 6, 9, 12 months, but not overnight.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people miss.
But when people struggle with just being consistent on those things, even if they add like a small thing or eliminate one small thing, why is it so hard for people to be consistent with one thing, let alone, everything? And how can people learn how to be more consistent? I feel like that's a skill in itself. Just doing something every week for a year is a skill.
I think part of it is, what are you choosing to be consistent with? You actually care about what you're doing. We just entered a new year, and a lot of people will set New Year's resolutions. And I bet you most people that set these resolutions are choosing things that they don't actually want to do or care about. One of the best ways to be consistent is choosing things to be consistent with and about that you can stick to and that you want to. Don't choose running if you hate running. Maybe you like hiking. Maybe you like walking. Maybe you like going to the gym. Choosing things that you want to be consistent with is the first step, I believe. And then why? Are you doing it to prove others wrong? Are you doing it to be healthy? Are you doing it for your family? Is your baby due in a month and you want to be a better parent for them? Is that the reason why? I think those are the first steps.
Yeah.
Are we doing things just to spin our wheels? Or are we doing things to be intentional? Because lack of intentionality leads to a repetition of what is easiest, and it's easy to be inconsistent.
It's very easy to be inconsistent. What are 3 skills you wish you would have learned before entering the Army?
The power of true delegation and elevation. You know, being a doer, wanting to lean in and work on things that you can do because you believe in yourself. It's great for the short term, but it's unsustainable. You know, I've had to learn that in business over a long period of time, that there is so much power in delegation and empowerment. When you empower people to do a job, give them more responsibility, more accountability, people thrive. They thrive in empowerment. That is part of building an amazing team, culture, and brand. Delegation, elevation is number 1. I'd say the second skill is patience.
How much patience do you have?
How much patience, and how do you handle that in front of yourself and in front of others?
Do you have a lot of patience?
I do now.
You didn't then?
In certain things, I do now. You know, building a business has taught me a lot about patience. Running marathons has taught me a lot about patience.
You're not going to get there fast. You got to take it easy, slow and steady, yeah.
You know what's funny is when I first started running marathons, if I had a 7-mile easy run for that day, I'd go run that 7 miles as hard as possible. Running marathons you can apply to a lot of parts of life. And my coach, my triathlon coach, her name was Natasha, based out of Austin. She would respond to my stories before I started working with her. And she would say, "You're running too fast. You're running too hard. You're not going to get faster."
Interesting.
So I decided to work with her. I was like, well, help me get to where I want to be.
So she's telling you need to run slower in order to be faster.
Right. So we sat down and we talked, and she said, "I understand what you're trying to do. You know, you want to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. And you would think that running those 7-mile training runs as fast as possible will correlate to running a really fast marathon, but it doesn't. What you need to do is you need to run below your max aerobic heart rate. You need to run truly easy. You need to be in an aerobic state. You need to run slower to get faster."
Why?
Because you're building this foundation. You're building a strong foundation that you can build a house upon. If you lay no foundation, no aerobic foundation, you can't get faster. All these track workouts and these speed workouts and these tempo workouts, they mean nothing.
In a marathon.
In a marathon.
Right.
Because you're not building it on top of this foundation. 26.2 miles is a long time to hold a certain heart rate and a certain pace.
Yeah.
So to run slower, you lay this foundation, you lay this base, and it's strong, it's bulletproof. Then you build upon it. That is patience. That is having the patience to run slower in order to get faster. You're taking a step back to get 2 steps forward. You apply that to
Everything.
your life,
Yeah.
everything. You know, now having a kid and being married and leading a team, without patience, you're struggling.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so patience. And a third skill?
The third skill, it is similar to the two. And it is that you can go really fast alone, but you can go so much further together. I learned this by leading a platoon. I learned this in Ranger School. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about other people. You know, a few years ago, I did the Leadville 100 ultra marathon in the Rocky Mountains of Leadville, Colorado. It starts above 10,000 feet of elevation, and it's a brutal course. And that's one of those races that certain people can do by themselves. But me, I needed support.
Yeah.
I had a crew that would go from checkpoint to checkpoint, and they would tape up my ankles.
Wow.
They would feed me. They'd fill up my water. And we titled that documentary More Than the Miles. You know, those 100 miles in an ultra, yes, it's going from point A to point B. But what you don't see is what gets you there. It's the support, it's the people, it's the distance that everyone else achieves and goes through. That was a pivotal point in my life to realize, and I think a lot of people realize at some point in their life that you can go really fast by yourself. And early on in building my business, I had to. I had no other choice or option. By yourself as fast as possible gets you to a certain point. But for longevity, for endurance, for durability, a group of people will go so much further.
Yeah.
If I apply that now to building my family and building my business and team, and it pays off because there's no way I could get my business now to the point it is by myself.
Yeah.
I got it off the ground. I got it to a certain point, but it's here now because of the people involved.
Absolutely.
Morning routine was very similar. When I transitioned out of the Army, there was never really the thought of, well, let's change this morning routine up, because it worked. For me, it was proven successful that it allowed me to achieve a lot of the things that I wanted to do throughout the day through backwards planning.